What's up, YouTube? This is Rinder from Desi Canadian. I hope you're having an amazing day on day one of 2021. We have seen a lot of things happening in 2020, and I'm hopeful that in coming up in 2021, we're going to have a lot of good stuff happening around. So, without wasting much time, let's get into the talk which we're going to have today. So, the video which I'm going to do today is based on a small project. This is for a Happy New Year project, and I want to do it a little bit differently. This is for especially for the people who are trying to learn the new language, especially the programming languages, and this will give them a little bit of insight how they can start up, how they can move on, how they can work on, or what kind of ideology they need to keep in their mind while working in the assignments. Now, this is not something that will help you how to learn to code, like in terms of technicalities, like what in a very minute detail, but this might help you to understand, or this might help you to move forward, keep your thinking straight, and help you to channelize your potential and skills and everything that you have in place to get oriented in a better possible way. So, without wasting my time, let's get into it. So I'm going to create a separate folder structure into my in a separate place where I can keep my code. Got it? So I'll be doing that in my public project. As you can see, there's nothing in there. First of all, I'm going to install globally a Vue CLI. That will help me to create a project in there. I'm going to use Vue CLI to create a new folder, new project folder, and it'll take me through the configuration which I need for this project. So there are a few settings which I'm gonna skip for now, but I'll speed them up and let the configuration take its own path, through which it'll ask me to install a couple of packages. So it'll take a second. I will speed this up a little bit to make things quicker. Next, we're going to navigate the directory and run yarn sub, which will run our default development server, and it will make our development environment up and ready so that we can access that in browser. Till this point, we have dummy skeleton of the Vue.js project up and ready. As you can see on the right side of the screen, I can access my default dummy project. Now I'm going to open this project in my VS Code and import that in so that I can start working on this one. The skeleton which you're seeing on the screen right now, it's a boilerplate which is being created by your Vue.js CLI, and you can freely explore and exploit it the way you want to. All right, so let's get going with the code in here. So I'm going to remove some of the extra code which is lying in there for the boilerplate because we don't need that in there. I'm going to clean that up and rewrite the code the way we want it to have in there. Now, there might be places where I'll try to speed up things a little bit just to make sure the video length does not go too long. But the idea in here is that we're going to create separate components, and these components will have a specific structure which will help us to put back the arrangement of the code the way we want to present it in there. So that's the whole idea in here, and I will try to keep it more simple, more simplistic, to not to exceed it, but because the whole thing which we're trying to focus in here is just have a simple message which will say Happy New Year, and we want to do that while we implement, or we try to execute that with the help of Vue.js in here. So everything it's going to be revolving around the Vue.js completely, and there won't be anything will go outside. So I'll start with renaming my hello world to the component which I need for my need, which is the Happy New Year component, and I'm going to rearrange some of the stuff so that the default hello world should not render anymore on my page, because we want it to be Happy New Year now. So this is just like arrangement of some code, and so that my right component gets invoked for the right at the right place, and nothing goes off the hook. So with that said, I think I can see my default message being rendering on the screen. The next thing which I want to pass a message as a property, as a props. I'm going to pass that as with the new year, because that's what we're trying to welcome in here as a happy new year for 2020, and like not 2020, 2021. I'm coding this on the eve itself, so that's why you're seeing the message you're going to see is for the 2020 and not for 2021. But by the time this is deployed, hopefully this is going to be 2021. Well, I'm very honest on that. All right, so let's fix a problem within the code, and looks like I don't need to add a const in there. This is not needed, and this is going to be a property. All right, that's set in there. And a second thought, I think it will be wise if we have the New Year message being combined with the regular message in here, and we can pass the same property across as a single message to my component. Now that would be kind of a hit and try, but let's see how it goes in there. I'm gonna have a separate class, New Year message, for my component, which is gonna lie on the screen. So I want that to have a specific size and weight. So this is more like on the styling side of things. I don't want it to be too big, and at the same time, I don't want it to be like too small, so that it doesn't look like it does. It does not look like ugly on the screen. I need that in the center of the screen so that everything is like looks centrally and vertically centrally aligned. So I'm going to remove the top 50 and remove any extra CSS styling which I've added in there. So I think that looks okay. All right. So next thing I want some kind of animation on this one. So I'm going to use a keyframing a little bit so that the welcome message comes in with the style a little bit in there. And well, I don't personally like this much that much, but I think I'll probably change it. But for now, I'm just trying to set this up. So maybe a different animation will look nice, and I want that to happen like infinite. I think speed is too much. Let's slow it down a little bit. All right. All right, so not that bad. Okay, so next thing we want is I'm going to remove the New Year message from there and keep it like just with the separate message for Happy New Year and a separate year, because I'm going to use the year at the later stage for getting the news for the last year. So I'm going to break that up into two separate things. So let's try to add some CSS styling to this headers, and let's see if we can manage to make them a little bit nicer. So I'm gonna speed things up a little bit. This is more like HTML and CSS bar, which is very formal, and pretty much everybody or people who are trying to learn CSS or HTML, they're quite familiar with it. So I'm gonna let it go in a speed. Okay, all right, so there we have it, our Happy New Year message coming up in a nice rainbow styling, and I think this looks a little nice. Probably I need a little bit more adjustment, maybe a fine tuning, but I think for now this will hold good, and I'm gonna keep it that way. So probably I think this is enough on the styling for the message itself. Maybe a size a little bit, but we'll get to that. And for now, this is going to hold nicely. Okay, so next thing we want some kind of a year review, like in last year messages or news which we have seen. So I'm going to create a separate component for that, and this is going to be like a year in review, and which will get some news kind of a structure from the API, from news API, and it's going to render them on top of the screen. So this component will actually hold and get all those details, and I'm going to fixate that for any news which we have seen in last year. This is more like a year in review itself, and that's why I named the component step. So I'm going to use the year message which we used previously for that, which I said is for to be used later stage. I'm going to use that year, and I'm going to use an API which I'm going to use to make a fetch call to the APIs with my API keys, and that will help me to get the news for for the last year itself, and then we're going to render them on top of the screen nicely. So um, I'm going to import the components news, and I'm going to get that aligned. I'm going to put that on top of the page so that it gets aligned up nicely. Okay, so it looks it's there, but I need to adjust some styling a bit so that it takes good height and width. All right, maybe a little less. Maybe I need some styling in there, but probably a little margin. Well, I think the weird part with CSS is that you have to try a lot to see what fits your need, and it might require a little bit of trying and testing for yourself. So I'm gonna try a few things in here to see which one goes nicely with my palette. Okay, that looks nice. Centrally aligned in there, and I think that I can go with the next phase. So I'm gonna set up the API keys for the API, which I'm gonna use to make the call, to make the fetch call. And these API keys can be set in .file and Vue.js or any other framework for JavaScript can pick those files and read the environment component for yourself. So this is pretty straightforward and a simple, nice trick. I'm going to keep the variables in there and pick the values for the API keys at the runtime and use those keys in my methods, which I'm going to create now. This method will actually be the get news, and it's going to fetch the news, the API key, which I just kept in my environment file. Okay, so I'm going to use URL to newsapi.org, and I'm going to use my keys, which I have in my environment variable. I'm going to get the keys and make a fetch call. So I'm gonna adjust this method a little bit to suit my needs. Right now, I just left basic skeleton, which will just get the news and put that into the console. But the idea in here is that I want to get the news from there one by one, and I'm gonna iterate over all the news and put them nicely as a banner on top of the page, which will give a nice review for the last year, which has gone recently. So I'm gonna speed things a little bit up in here to fix up things a bit nicely. Okay, so we have our news coming up on the top of the page, the banner, and maybe I can style that up a little bit to make it more juicy for the eyes to see. Probably I'm going to use the title and a bit of a description after the news, like the news which I'm seeing on the screen and the banner, and maybe see if I can have them as a cover or a contain. I'll see which one looks nicer. Alright, so there we have it. The news is coming up nicely. They're getting scrolled across. I think right now I can clean up a little bit, but overall it's this looks nice, and I can see my news are getting scrolled up. The looper is iterating over my news from one side to the other. Alright, so till this point we have a working case where the news for the last year, as you can see here in review, they're showing up nicely in there, and that looks nice. Probably can have a nice copyright message lying somewhere at the bottom of the screen. Oops, I think I deleted the I think I deleted the complete component from rendering. I need to undo that. I think one more, maybe. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's put the copyright back. All right, so I think at this point, the complete structure for the Happy New Year website with year in review is working nice. Okay, so we have a nice title coming up from the news in there. I think next thing we can look for is have some kind of a small description lying below the headline. I think that would look a bit nicer. I think with the news title on the top and a bit of a description at the bottom of the news, that will be a nice thing to do. So let's go with that and let's try that up. So I'm gonna have a light news description in the bottom. So let me just change and extract the description from the article, and there we go. And I think we can align that up a little bit, because I think if we have to show two things, we need to align them in top and bottom a little bit so that they look clean, realistically. So I'm gonna do some CSS modification for the news description and in the headline, so they appear in top and the bottom of each other, like the description being in the bottom of the title, not the other way around. Well, I think that will look cool as well, but for now I'm going to try this one. Okay, that looks nice. Okay, this is all right. The next thing I want if somebody clicks on the title, they should be taken to the news page, and they can, if they want, they can read the whole story in there. So I think I need to adjust a few for styling, and the problem is I think the Happy New Year message is kind of overlapping with the title in here, and that's why it's kind of a blocking the clicking event in there. So the one way would be to decrease the size of the Happy New Year, but that will take it off the center of the screen. The other thing which I can do is I can make it like on the Z index, I can push it to go in the backward. And I think the second approach would be easier. I think I'm kind of lazy in that way, but this will serve the purpose for me, and this can go pretty straightforward in there. So let's try doing that in here. Okay, so if I click on that, the news page open up nicely in a separate link, and that's what I want to achieve. So I think it looks nice, and the news is scrolling up from the top one, like from two other news, and the banner is updating itself with the news and the title and the description, and I can also see my Happy New Year message in the center of the screen. So I think probably I can adjust the timing a little bit and make sure that if there's a news which gets to be, if there are any latest news which were not recorded at this moment, they can be pulled up from there nicely. So I'm gonna change my mounted hook and let this call every 60 seconds. I think that'll be enough for now. Probably 6 seconds, I think. Yeah. Well, for now it's all right. So every 6 seconds, this can get updated. I think this is okay. All right. So now that we have the code up and ready, let's deploy it. I'm going to use Bostel to get this deployed. Bostel is an easy and straightforward approach to get a code deployed. So as you can see, I have a New Year code which I just pushed to my GitHub repo under my username. This is the same code which I have in my local, and I tried to push that back in there. So let's import that code in here, and I'm going to use individual free plan, which is a personal account for myself, and I'm going to deploy that as a New Year code as a Vue project. I'm going to set up the environment variable, which I did from a project in here. It's going to be a separate variable. I'm going to add that in here for the API keys. I'm going to add that for the project to pick up, for the news to be invoked from with the fetch API. So let's add those variables in here. All right, and the next thing we can do is deploy and wait for this to be done. It's going to take a while. I'm going to speed this up so that it gets done quickly. All right, so there we have it. Congratulations, your project is successfully deployed in the Vassal, and we can go ahead and take a look how it looks. Perfect. Please let me know in comments how did you like it. If you want to watch more content, please do subscribe, like, and share. Thank you. Happy New Year.